Peace. Black Power families, brother Agyei Tyehimba, representing Harlem Liberation School, where we teach black people to wake up, clean up, and stand up. I do want to give a quick disclaimer and apology at the onset of this live broadcast. I am not at home. I am outside. There's obviously people playing music and all that. So please try to bear with that. It has nothing to do with me. I have no control over it. And anyway, let's get started. Please, if you see it and you find it interesting, share it so other people can check it out too. Well, family, today marks the 138th birthday of our brother Marcus Garvey, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And you're going to see a lot of people, a lot of different cities will have parades and festivals and even places throughout the world, as they should. He deserves that and more. It would have been his 138th birthday. And what I'd like to do is pay him some honor and respect from my vantage point by doing this live broadcast that kind of briefly outlines 5 things that I deeply respect and admire about him. And I should say also that much of how I process politically, emphasis on not just talking but getting things done. A lot of things, man, comes directly out of the Marcus Mosiah Garvey playbook. I'm forever indebted to him. And so let me begin with the first thing that I deeply respect. Brother Marcus Garvey, and remember, this is from my vantage point. This is not a scholarly broadcast, family. It's not, I'm going to give you 100 million facts in this. I'm telling you from the heart and mind what he means to me personally. Can't speak for everybody else. First of all, he represents the principle of resilience. If you know the story, you know that Marcus Garvey obviously was born in Jamaica, and I believe 1884, and he had traveled to different parts of the world, South America, and I think England, trying to look at the condition of black people at that time and see what comparisons he could make, what lessons he could learn from that travel experience. One of the people he actually met with was Don Pedro Albizu Campos, the famed Puerto Rican nationalist revolutionary. And the two of them had great respect for each other. But upon coming back, he wanted to start the UNIA, Universal Negro Improvement Association. But for a lot of reasons, although his ideas were welcomed by many of the masses in Jamaica at the time, you had, because Jamaica was a colony of Britain, so you had the British colonial authorities there. You had the black elite. These would have been the predominantly fair-skinned, biracial, if we're being honest, black folk who were very much entrenched in some of the local politics and business of the day. And they were not necessarily people who identify with Pan-African or nationalist ideology, right? So when Brother Garvey comes talking about race separatism, race pride, race purity, the elite black people in Jamaica, most of them fair-skinned, most of them biracial, and most of them who had politics of accommodation, most of them saw themselves as being down with some of the positive of the British colonials. They weren't feeling Garvey, family, in Jamaica. They weren't feeling him. And the British authorities, the colonizers weren't feeling him. So for those reasons, the UNIA and Garvey's Pan-African nationalism didn't really take root in Jamaica initially. Peace, Brother Shamir. So Brother Garvey, also a few things happened. That happened. He didn't get the reception he wanted, right? And the acceptance he wanted for his ideas and for his organization. Secondly, and remember, this is the first principle of resilience is what I'm speaking to, that he was resilient, right? The second thing that happened that was big for Brother Garvey was he read a book called Up from Slavery, the autobiography of Brother Booker T. Washington in the United States. And the person who is the founder and I guess you would say the president or director, if you will, of Tuskegee Institute, which is now Tuskegee University. He reads Booker T. Washington's autobiography. He's blown away. And he's blown away. Well, let me not get to that too much yet. The point here is that Garvey was not initially appreciated, recognized, and accepted in Jamaica, his home nation. But he didn't stop. He was resilient. He didn't let those politics get in the way of his vision. So he eventually wound up going to the United States. And when he immigrates to the United States, right, that's a whole other thing we're getting into for number 2. But the point is, he didn't give up. He came to the United States and he found a receptive audience in my hometown of Harlem, New York, with this very sizable activist, radical intellectual, and Caribbean population. It was a perfect fit. He ran into the perfect storm for his ideas. So one of the things I love about Brother Garvey, and I admire and deeply respect, is he didn't give up. He was resilient. It's not going to work here? No problem. I take it somewhere else, right? And we have to model that resilience. Sometimes people don't get you the first go round. Sometimes people got to go through things like more oppression, police murders, mass incarceration, gross disrespect of our sisters in public places before they finally say enough is enough, right? So Garvey had resilience. That's point number 1. Point number 2, history paints Garvey as being highly arrogant, highly cocky and arrogant. If you read a lot of the historical texts, particularly the scholarly texts that were not written by black folk who were nationalists, you're going to get that kind of, he didn't listen, he was arrogant, he did things his way. I wasn't there, I can't verify that. But I see this. He was humble enough to see brilliance and beauty and value in somebody outside of himself. Boy, oh boy, a lot of us could certainly learn from that brother on that lesson. Some of us think that we are just the only, we all the sand on the beach, and don't realize, no, you're just a speck of sand on a very large beach. In other words, there's all types of black people with great talent and great insight and wisdom and great accomplishment and great experience. Not just you or me. And some of these people have more than you and me. And we need to be humble and be able to say, man, I see beauty and value in what this brother's doing over here, or that school being built over there, or this film company I see developing over here. You see, sometimes we get so caught up in what we're doing, we can become really arrogant, and we think we just doing it all, and we don't know, nah, man, you're one of millions of Africans all over the world that's doing great things and thinking big things and trying to make it happen. So instead of being the typical type, the Negro type, that doesn't want to acknowledge others, that wants to think that they are doing this all on their own, Brother Garvey shows us another way. He was humble enough to say, I got this great idea, but I'm reading this book called From Slavery, from this black man in America named Booker T. Washington. I'm blown away. He got a whole college. Everything on the grounds of that college, black people built. The black students built it. Everything. You understand, family? Garvey is blown away by this. So Garvey actually writes Booker T. Washington. He makes plans to visit him. But by the time Garvey gets to the United States, Booker T. Washington has died several months earlier. So now he's here. Marcus Garvey is very disappointed. He wanted to meet this man because you know what he wanted to do? He wanted to take Booker T. Washington's Tuskegee Institute college model and bring it back to Jamaica, family. That takes humility. In other words, a lot of times everybody wants to start something new. I gotta do this. I want to reinvent the wheel. Even though this exists and this worked, I want to do it because I want the acclaim. That's an ego thing. Brother Garvey had the humility to say, you know what? That black man is doing something I haven't done. He's doing something I aspire to do, and I'm humble enough to recognize it. And I'm not only humble enough to recognize it, I'm going to write that man, and I'm going to praise. We wrote a letter praising this man. Some of us brothers can't do that. We can't be like, Brother Ramzu Eunice, he's on here. Some of us brothers can't be like, yo, Brother Ramzu, man, you got heart, man, you got fearlessness, brother, you walk it like you talk it, man, you in Detroit making noise, you traveling the world, you're building bridges, man, I admire that, brother. I admire that in you. Man, you're a hell of a warrior and a soldier for the race. Some of us can't do that. And to the degree we can't do that, we will never be our fullest self. Right? Because the sun shines on all the planets, family, on the entire galaxy. Not just Earth. We're suns like that. And we're supposed to see our reflection, or God, or the divine's reflection in all of our people. So Garvey had that. So he's writing long letter to Booker T. Man, I love what you're doing. Oh my God, I read your book. It blew me away. I would like to come there and meet you, because he wanted to get Washington's support. He was hoping to get some financial support, some meetings to maybe some tours to find out the intricacies of Tuskegee Institute, to study it and to kind of replicate it in Jamaica. That's really why he wanted to come and why he came to the United States. But of course, like I said, by the time he got to the United States, family, he wasn't getting in no jet plane back then, right? And there wasn't no video chat back then. So by the time we got on that trip to the United States, Booker T. Washington had died several months earlier. Now, he's here now. He's not just going to pick up and go back to Jamaica, right? So what's he do? He says, you know what? I'm going to continue the work he did, and I'm going to build on it, right? That's another lesson. Like, we should be learning from our ancestors, our predecessors, those that came before us. But it doesn't mean we got to stay stuck where they were. We can learn, and they're our foundation, and we could what? We could build, right? We can build on what they did. Every great teacher, I'm a teacher, family. That's my foundation, a teacher and a community organizer. Every real teacher wants their students to take what they gave them and build on it. You take it further than me. You take it in dimensions I couldn't see, right? You take it places that I didn't even think about. That's what we want. Whether that's martial arts teacher, engineering teacher, Africana studies teacher. We all want to see our students take that and run with it, right? So that's what he did. So I love his humility, that he could see brilliance and beauty in Booker T. Washington and build on it. Because, you know, as important as Booker T. Washington was, some say he's one of the godfathers of black nationalism in the United States. He did have a kind of conservative piece, you know. And Marcus Garvey came with a more overtly clear race first. Straight up. No sugarcoating it. No messages that speaking this to white people and this to black people. No, straight up to black people. Race purity, race separatism, everything. Straight up. So he added on to what Washington had. Number 3 thing I admire about Brother Garvey was his masterful use, his understanding and his masterful use of propaganda. You know, today, family, I hear our brothers and sisters all over this and we gotta have the facts. I want all the citations, and I want the page number, and yeah, that has its place. Garvey understood. What's the most widely read books in the world? Bible, Quran. What's the most widely books in the so-called black conscious community? In the Africana studies type of community, the political community, if you will. Right? Think about it. Blood in My Eye, Soul on Ice, maybe. Autobiography of Malcolm X. Those aren't scholarly works. Those aren't works that's loaded with a billion citations. But they spoke to the hearts and minds of black people. Garvey understood that. And by the way, his own classic book wasn't a scholarly book. Philosophy of the Opinions of Marcus Garvey wasn't what we would call a traditional scholarly book. It was a book of his prose, of his essays, and his wife put it together. Shout out to Amy Jocks Garvey, who compiled all those writings, right? But that book has touched my life and influenced my political trajectory far more than any so-called scholarly book. I'm not knocking the scholarly books because I'm a scholar. I'm not knocking them. I'm saying we can get real caught up in things and we forget. That's what we think is important. What do the people think? Autobiography of Malcolm X, Asada. Those aren't scholarly works, but I can guarantee you more black people read that than some hoity-toity scholarly work that 5 people read outside of people in some scholarly conference. So we need to keep that real. Garvey understood propaganda and the need to use it masterfully because it was used against us in an anti-black way. He used it in a pro-black way. So think about this. This newspaper, the Negro World, his trade was that of a printer. So he knew all about putting newspapers together and things like that. And he used his trade for the people. So the Negro World is all over some of these places colonized by the white man. And it's so inspiring, informing, motivating people to think differently, to see beauty in the mirror when they look at their black selves. Family, this was a time when nobody even wanted to say they was black. This is a time when you might get into a serious fight if you suggested somebody was black. And this was definitely a time when nobody was talking about I'm African and I'm proud to be, family. He is the foundation. We need to be very clear on that. And I put in a post here on Facebook way before Nation of Islam. I'm not going to say the Moorish Science Temple because that's around the same time, and I'm actually not clear on which one was first. But way before Nation of Islam, OAU, a Nation of God, 5% Nation of Gods and Herbs, Black Panther Party, Republic of New Africa, RAM, way before them, way before we talking about African Center schools, liberation schools like Harlem Liberation School, way before all of that, this man laid the foundation. So we all owe him a huge debt. He's the foundation. That's not to say he's the end all and be all, but you can't get into this movement and not come across no Honorable Marcus Garvey, family, because if you in this movement and you ain't come across him, you missed out on some foundational, everybody's throwing this word around, foundational information if you didn't come through Garvey, right? Okay, so he got his speeches and his fiery speeches and writings, his cadence really fast, really strong, right? His writings, his sayings, up you mighty race, we can accomplish what we will. What man has done, man can do. Strong statements to give us spine, make us sit up and stand up, and to love ourselves and see faith in ourselves and see hope, to believe that we deserve to be free and we will fight to be free, and one day we will be free. This is the energy he puts into the movement, and wasn't nothing scholarly about that. For all of y'all who are on this, everything got to be scholarly. I want to correct you on that because you're wrong. All the biggest best-selling books in the world, almost none of them are scholarly. There's something about hitting people here, family. That gets above how many things it is in the graph. Y'all, people, we become a European. We want to Africanize this discussion. Garvey understood. I gotta hit the hearts and minds of the people. So he hit him with that newspaper. He hit him. This man wrote poetry. The man gave us a flag. Why? He wants you to see yourself as a nation, if not a currently existing nation, a nation in becoming. Now, all of us who say we nationalists and we Pan-Africanists, we owe that man a debt. He lays the foundation where people started really saying, yo, we are a nation. We got a flag. So this is very important. It's his mastery of propaganda. Gave us that red, black, and green, broke down what they mean in ways that are clear, concise, and relatable. Red, blood, the struggle of our people to be free and to unify. Huh? Black, us, our hue, our humanity, our color, our culture, our race. He's pushing that race consciousness. I know you're going to talk about Marx and socialism. I know you're going to hear this and that. But never forget, I don't give a damn if it's a social construct, a biological construct. He's telling you the whole world is organizing based on what? Religion or spiritual beliefs and race and ethnicity. And if you're not involved in that, you are out of the game. Everyone's organizing on the basis of that. And we must organize on the basis of that. We must be proud of who we are and where we come from. But it's the way he did it. Newspapers, poetry. The man wrote speeches. Did you know he wrote songs? The Honorable Marcus Garvey wrote hymns. I'm talking about hymns you would sing in a church. Yes, he was a Christian, but he was an Africanized revolutionary Christian. Complete different understanding of how we understand Christianity. This man was brilliant. Do you know that he had archbishops? He basically almost had all of the components of his own, what we call Black liberation theology in the 60s with the late, great Baba James Cone. Garvey was talking about that way back then. He basically had a church family. Why? Because he was so caught up in the church? No. Because he knew that this struggle is to win the hearts and minds of our people. And that's where the people were. Some of us get so hoity-toity, family, we forget, and we only talk to this type of black person, that type of black person. God was like, look, if our people there, I'm going there. I'm going there where the people are. And I'm getting them, and that's what he did. There's no mystical, magical explanation for why he has one of the largest organized movements in our history. I'm breaking this down to you. These different attributes made him stand apart from many others. He gave the common man, you know how we get, family, with the capitalism. We get real caught up because we got this degree. We grew up on Sugar Hill of Harlem versus, let's say, the Valley 8th Avenue or 7th Avenue. So we think we better. We went to this black college, or our parent got this job, city job. So we get caught up in that. Garvey didn't give a damn. Garvey said, I'm going for the masses of the people because there's more of them. As Brother Malcolm eloquently broke down, more field Negroes than house Negroes. I'm going for the field Negroes. I don't care. I'm not going to let people put class divisions, artificial barriers in the way. You understand? All right. Number 4 thing I like. Solution-oriented politics. And remember, family, this is not a scholarly broadcast. This is me. If y'all coming on, this is me saying what I like about him. I'm not saying that this is an exhaustive list, that these are the only things good. It's just my personal paying homage to him on his birthday, man. That's all. I'm bearing witness to that man, right? His solution-oriented politics. Brother Garvey hated to see little, beautiful black girls playing with these white dolls. He hated it. For him and me, it represents a subliminal way of making us patriotic to them, making us look to them as symbols of beauty and authority, right? He felt, as do most of we on this thread, I hope, that we should be dabbling in things, interacting with people, praying to deities, if that's our thing, or whatever, that reflect and represent our interest and image, right? He is actually, we talking about, see, y'all need to know this man is the foundation, family. If you didn't know, I got to make sure you leave here and know. If you don't get nothing else, he's the foundation. If you say you Pan-African, you say you nationalist, you say you Pan-African nationalist, he's your foundation. Because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, great as he is and was a Garveyite. We know this now. Yeah. Brother Malcolm, great as he was and is, and he's my number 1. For sure. In terms of influence besides my father. But who were his parents? I'm just curious. What organization were his parents in? Luis and Earl Little. The UNIA. They were not only Garvey members, UNIA members, they were actual recruiters for the Honorable Marcus Garvey. They actually recruited people into the organization. And the wife, as you know, wrote for the Negro World, and his father, as you know, was a preacher that traveled, right, and spoke on Garveyite teachings. But they were recruiters for the organization. So X comes through the intellectual veins of Marcus Garvey. Elijah Muhammad comes through the veins of Marcus Garvey. Oh, the Panther Party, Revolutionary Action Movement, all of our Pan-African nationalist organizations have to bear witness to him, whether they admit it, whether they were formal, official members or not. These are, since we all into facts so much, I really have a problem with that, but that's another story. Since we all into facts, that's a fact. But he was solution-based. So instead of him just being in the barbershop or the bar or wherever, saying, man, I can't stand that our girls is playing with these white dolls. I don't like that. I don't like the image with white man clothes. I don't like the optics. I don't like how that looks. I don't like the imagery that black girls feel like that's what they got to look up to. Black girls are beautiful on their own merit. That beautiful melanin. Man, so what's he do? He writes about it in the Negro World. He speaks about it at his headquarters in Harlem. And then he creates a black doll manufacturing plant in Harlem, solutions-based, right? So he puts the theory, the critique, and he puts the institution. You see how he does that? All those things together. He fuses it all together. The theory, the critique, or analysis, and the institution all together. He saw a need for black people in the U.S., the Caribbean, the continent of Africa, to get involved in enterprise together, to do business and trade. Well, back then, and even today, the main way you do trade involves ships as the means of transporting the goods from a different country to your country or vice versa. So what's he do? He talks about it at his weekly meetings. He writes on it in the Negro World newspaper, which is getting all over the world. And he creates an institution. In this case, he creates the Black Star Shipping Line. I was very fortunate, man, I was very fortunate to have met and have be my Jegna throughout high school and undergrad. So for about 8 years, and then we kind of parted ways and came back. Sister Una Mozak was the founder and proprietor of Liberation Bookstore in Harlem, very famous bookstore in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. She personally gave me books, and I bought books, and she gave me stories, and she was so dynamic. She was fighting in Guyana in the revolution. She was a bad sister. And she told me that either her father or grandfather was the first shipping captain for Garvey, or one of his ship captains. So she comes along that line of Garveyism. But he starts this Black Star Shipping Line. And I know you heard, he was fraudulent and he was selling fake. Listen, family, I'm not going to name people, but unlike some people who make promises for stuff and collected millions of dollars for it, ain't producing nothing to show for that. This man had actual boats. This man had actual ship captains. Now, the problem was they didn't have the right knowledge and understanding of ships to some degree. Some of those ships they bought 2, 3, 4 times their actual worth. And many of those ships were defective. So there's a few times he would sail out from Harlem and they'd have to stop and come back because the ship had repairs issues they didn't know about. To what do we attribute this? Well, I know Tony Martin and I believe Tony Hill both would have agreed that the preeminent Garvey scholars I think Jahi Issa also co-signed this, was that they were agents. Oh, wait a minute. You mean the white man put Negroes in our organizations to destabilize them and report back to white folk what they were doing? You mean white people would do us like that? Yes. They have a long history of it, in fact. In fact, anytime you meet with upwards of 50 black people who are serious in any organization or event, you should assume that if they're not in your organization already, they will be there. If you're doing any real work, there will always be mischief makers that are sent there. So we know that there were a few people that were put in situations that were supposed to do inspecting of boats and do all this garbage. We didn't know nothing about that. So he has people that do that. And you got to be able to trust them. And so we all very much suspect that he had some questionable people in certain positions, and now they're paying all this money for boats that weren't worth that much money and boats that were defective. But he absolutely did have boats. He actually was prepared to do the business, unlike some people who promising all types of stuff for 20 years, getting millions of dollars in donations, and haven't produced a brick of a building. So these are two different things. People trying to link them, two totally different types of men. The fifth thing I like was his emphasis not just on protesting, not just on fighting for white validation, not on we want to be included, the whole integration, assimilation piece. Garvey's one of the first people that popularized the notion that we should have liberation. And one of the first people who popularized the notion that we have self-determination, that we should actually control land, a landmass, a territory that is under our jurisdiction, where we are self-governing. We write the laws, we enforce the laws, we set the mores, we set the standards, we define all the things of importance, the values and priorities, and we protect it. Now you might be saying, well, I don't remember him. Well, didn't he have a group of nurses that were all black women? That another organization kind of borrowed from that and had the MGT, the Nation of Islam. So he had the nurses under him, all sisters. That was actually the precursor of the MGT in the Nation of Islam. He had our brothers standing by in uniform, looking serious, looking like they was ready to hurt something. And they were the precursors of the fruit of Islam in the Nation of Islam. So he's showing you he has a flag. He has a group of sisters, nurses, dealing with what? Medicine. All the things that deal with medicine is embodied or symbolized by the Black Cross nurses. And the Legionnaires, I believe we call them, are the brothers that represent the military force. Right? And he wrote a national anthem. He wrote songs and poetry. He's giving you what? At a glance, the basic components of a nation. He's getting people, black people, to really, for one of the first serious times in a mass way, to say, you know what? We could be running our own nation, and we could sink or swim, not based on another man's decisions, but on our own. And he got people for one of the first times to look toward Africa as the hub of this activity. Why? Well, because this country has been robbed and raped by white folk for centuries. Didn't really belong to white folk or us. Well, that's questionable. But we got a landmass called Africa that is clearly one of the richest continents on this planet. Because think of all of the plundering that's been going on for centuries, and it's still 65% of their land is arable, which means it is fertile. 65%, fam. That means you can put damn near anything in the ground and it's going to grow. Okay? Diamonds, oil, gold, platinum, uranium, all the things they use for cell phones, lithium. You know, to have a green business and green societies, you got to have lithium, rechargeable batteries that don't emit any, to our knowledge, pollutants. So he back then was saying, you know what? We have to reclaim Africa. Because with that, we get what? Land, ownership, a place where we can all meet homogeneously, meaning all us, just us together, right? All us, just us. All us, just us together in one place. And we can set our own agendas and operate like any other nation, right? I mean, the vision, the boldness of this man. He comes here, so I looked around for all these things that black people own, and I didn't see, where's all this, where's all this, where's all that? I didn't see it. So I decided I'm going to put it here. Do you see the difference in that type of thinking? I mean, this is a man that really needs to be studied and emulated, family. He really needs to be emulated. Really needs to be emulated. He said, I'm not going to waste too much time with the political. I'll let other people do the traditional political stuff. I'm going to build a nation. He's a nation. He saw himself as a nation builder. That's how I see myself and the crew I roll with. We see ourselves, we're gonna protest because we got to sometimes, right? And we're gonna infiltrate different sites of power so we know what's going on and we can report back to our community and make sure we have protection. And some of us who are so inclined will go into their traditional party politics and try to get concessions and what we can out of that. But at the end of the day, we got to have our own nation, and we're entitled to. You know why we're entitled to, black men and women? Because guess what? Our ancestors were dragged over here against their will, didn't ask to come here. They were worked damn near to death. They were sexually assaulted, disconnected from their culture and their people. Their families were displaced. And then comes the Civil War, which we fought in, died and killed in. And after the Civil War, they come up with this 14th Amendment, and they say, you know what? You guys, now, if you're born here, you're a citizen. And if you're born here and you're a citizen, you have all the citizenship rights that everybody else is entitled to. Oh, that's great. The only problem is no one ever asked us, do you want to be citizens of this United States? Because since you're the descendants of people we brought here against their will, no one ever really asked you. You never really elected. You never really voluntarily stated, I want to be part of this nation. So we have a right, legally and otherwise, to say, you know what? No, I don't want to necessarily be part of this nation. I want to have my own nation. And now we got African countries that are waking up. Oh, by the way, Kwame Nkrumah, the first formally independent African nation, part of the African independence movement. Wonder where he got his political analysis from. Wonder who inspired him. Who was he reading? Honorable Marcus Garvey. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He was a Pan-Africanist. And guess what? The boys who had long been kind of an opponent of Garvey in some ways, an antagonist, they both, and let's be very clear, they both wrote some ugly things about each other. Not just Du Bois. Garvey did too. Let's be clear. They clashed over a lot of issues. But guess what? Where did Du Bois move and spend the twilight of his life? What country did he go to? And eventually die in? Ghana. Got a house there and everything, now a museum. He and his wife, Shirley. Why did he go to Ghana? Oh, because he was Pan-African. As you know, Du Bois hosted or co-hosted most of the Pan-African Congresses. And guess what he eventually came to see? That Garvey was right on some issues that he formally disagreed with him on. It's just that he lived to be 90-something years old. When you live that old, you can make a lot of mistakes, miscalculations, and missteps, and live long enough to say, you know what? 20 years ago when I took this position, damn, I was wrong. I didn't see it. I've done that. I'm not 90. I'm old enough where I've looked back and said, you know, when I took this position, sister, your hair is blonde, you ain't down for the struggle. brother, you got a white name, you ain't changing that, oh, you ain't down. I'm now clear that all those things are foolish. Those things are incidental. Your name, how you wear your hair, your Africanity exists in your consciousness, right? And your politics. So, but I was able to make that transition. But how many people never come to see that a position they had before may have been invalid? It takes living and life to figure that out. Well, anyway, so he owes a debt to Marcus Garvey as well, Brother Du Bois. Family, I love this man. I really do. I think I first read Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey. I want to say either 8th grade or 9th grade. And I was like blown away. And the reason I did that is because I was big on Malcolm X. And 13 years old, I said, I want to be like this guy in some way. I had great love and respect for him. And reading what I was reading on Malcolm led me to Garvey because I found out that, of course, his parents were Garveyites. And I wanted to know, well, who's this guy Garvey that had his parents follow him and that influenced him? And that led me to Garvey, and I was blown away. Like Garvey was blown away by Booker T. Washington's book, I was blown away by Garvey's book. All of these articles and writings and poems, I was like, wow. And he's talking about we need to have our own saints. We need to canonize our own saints and award our own heroes and sheroes. Another thing I liked about Garvey, he had women in his organization. He wasn't on that I'm better than you because we got different reproductive systems nonsense. He saw talent, he saw intelligence, and that's what he gravitated to. So he had sisters. You know about both his wives were named Amy, but also Queen Mother Moore comes through the Garveyite organization and was one of his biggest supporters and promoters way after his death. If you go to YouTube, you'll see a whole clip where Queen Mother Moore says, I think he came to Louisiana, Louisiana, and they were waiting to see him. But when all these people had assembled to hear him speak, and the police somehow got in the way of that, and so he did not come. Because I think the police said, if this Garvey comes to this attendance hall, this assembly, we're going to arrest him. So all of the people started talking, like, yo, you heard they did to Garvey? So they came to this hall. They put a word through to get to Garvey. We're going to be at this meeting hall for you, and we're going to wait for you. And we dare the police to come in there and arrest you. Garvey came in. She tells the whole story on YouTube. Garvey comes in. The police come in. They start talking. And they said, as soon as the police said, we're going to do this, Queen Mother Moore says, we all brought guns with us. She said, I had 2 guns. She's an old woman saying this at this point, right? She says, and when them police started threatening, we all put our guns up in the air. We stood up on our benches and put guns up in the air. And she said the police left like little sheep. He touched a lot of people. And I know for me, it was like, I want to be like this guy in some way. And for me, it was his writing, his understanding of propaganda. Not getting too caught up in who's scholarly, who's not, who's impacting our people. How do we get through to our people? All of our people don't go to scholarly conferences and read 400-page books and read the citations and go read the bibliography and read every book. A lot of our people don't do that, right? So if that's your only way of operating, you're going to miss a lot of our people. Garvey understood, I'm going to hit you in a way that connects with you. His songs he wrote, prayers he wrote, archbishops he hired, flag he created, parades. Why do you think he's doing parades? So he can march his soldiers down to 135th Street in Harlem. It's a long thoroughfare. And people can see them brothers in them uniforms. The little boys can say, Mom, look at that, and aspire to that. Or the Black Cross nurses. Huh? He knew that how to connect with people and to get them to understand things that sometimes the really deep intellectuals people just can't, they ain't got it like him. Not all of them, at least. He knew how to really get through to people, friends. And I love him for that. And man, I wish that he could see what our brother Ibrahim Traore is doing in Burkina Faso. I wish he could, oh man. Because it's like what's happening in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger would be the fulfillment partially of his vision. We're not quite there, but Kwame Nkrumah got it because Kwame Nkrumah was pushing for something that Garvey had a vision for: a United States of Africa. Some of us can't even wrap our mind around that. And that's what he was able to do. He was able to take something that you could not possibly see and get you to see it. And that is a rare and unique organizing skill. X had that too, by the way. Everybody don't have that. These are black people. You couldn't call us African without us wanting to fight. You couldn't call us black without us wanting to fight. We made fun of each other's skin color for years. And that way we were conditioned to be such. So we would never stand up and organize. And Garvey set us on fire with vision. Vision. He's one of the first people I read that was saying we need to kick white colonizers out of Africa. Straight like that. And that's why there were some countries that banned the Negro World newspaper film. Like, you get caught reading that Negro World newspaper, you get in trouble because it was a word we use now: anti-colonial, anti-imperialist. Garvey didn't have that language back then. He didn't even call himself Pan-African because that language wasn't quite there or popularized at that point. But he was completely Pan-African, and he was a Pan-African nationalist. He believed we should own our own institutions, create our own newspapers, mediums, our own political parties if we're going to have them. We should run our own government, definitely. And he also believed that we should fight for the unification and liberation of Africa as the hub. Because I don't know if you know this, but if you look abroad, countries like Korea, they didn't have cars back in the day. What helped Kia and these little Korean companies step up in the car game, the automotive game? Because they had their big brother, the Asian big brother of China, or the Asian big brother of Japan got on and put them on and shared their technology with them. Same thing. Burkina Faso gets put on. They kick these white colonizers out from France. They organize the people to get other countries to start thinking that way. Keep your lithium to yourselves. If you sell it to them, charge them 10 times. Right? And we work together, building refinery plants, building up the economy and their agriculture, and controlling all their mineral wealth, creating their own banks. What happens when we do that? We change put the whole world, change it on its head, turn it right on its head. But black people couldn't see that vision. They didn't even want to be called African. I want you to understand how big a task Garvey had. And he got a man named Kwame Nkrumah to buy into that and say, you know what? A United States of Africa. Why not? 54 separate countries. What if they did all get together? Imagine the power. One currency. They have several languages, but maybe they might develop one official language so everyone can communicate. Something like a Kiswahili would probably work well for that. Military. Just imagine the impact that would have. And then that would now mean what? Then now members of the African diaspora in other parts of the world have a big brother, big sister with money and land and technology to help them to maybe build out their businesses, build out their schools, bring their invisible ideas into physical manifestation. That's how that works. You got to have a big brother, big sister to put you on, to feed you the capital, the money, give you the space, the laboratories, or whatever. As African nations really understand Garvey's vision, that's what's going to happen, family. And we will no longer have to be playing sambo and dancing and singing and all this to get crumbs off white folks' table. We'll be able to make our own meals. build our own homes, speak our own language if we choose, create our own laws. I mean, this is really, and this, I'm being very simplistic here in my analysis, admittedly, but I attribute 98% of this thinking to the Honorable Marcus Garvey, straight like that. And anybody you hear that's even talking on that line, they got some of that from Garvey, whether they know it or not, because some of the persons they studying, the leaders they following, and they studied somebody who was following or down in Garvey's organizations that were touched by Garvey, family. He's that dude, as we say in the hood. He's that dude. He really is. He's the touchstone. He's the hub of a lot of that thinking. And we see his thinking manifested years later in the Black Power, Black Arts movement. Years later. Why? Because before Amiri Baraka said it, family, we need to be clear. And Marie Evans and Michael X, Marvin X, and Donnell Lee, known as Hakeem Adabuti, before they Nikki Giovanni, before they said it, Garvey said we need to have our own art and our image. Family, read his writing. He said we need to have our own heroes, our own sheroes, our own prayers. God needs to be in our image. Way before Black liberation theology was coined by James Cone. So I'm saying he is a foundation for a lot of the things we now, those of us who see ourselves as Pan-African nationalists, that we now believe in a lot of the projects we do. That's a fact. And if you didn't get it straight from Garvey, I can almost guarantee some of what you believe and fight for, you got from somebody who was connected to Garvey somehow, some way along the line. And so with that said, I don't want to kind of like go on and on forever, but I did just want to take some time out today to show love and respect for a brother that I have tremendous respect for. Tremendous. As a middle school kid, or maybe my freshman year of high school, reading him and just like, man, I was like, now I got another guy I want to be like. Outside my father and Malcolm X, I want to be like this guy a little bit. I know I'll never be just like him, but just have an impact on our people. Use propaganda well. Why you think I'm on these social media things, man? I'm trying to get the hearts and minds of our people. Sometimes I do it very in a scholarly way to hit that segment of our people. Sometimes it's just real grassroots, like we talking right now, fam. Hit you here and here, so we can see what time it is and what we need to do, and we can activate ourselves. He was really a force to be reckoned with. I mean, if you think about that, by the way, he came here, I don't know, was it 1918? About 1915, 16, Garvey came to the United States. Remember, he came to meet up with Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington had died, unfortunately. And 10 years later, Garvey went from being an absolute nobody knew who he was when he first came. He was another one of millions of Caribbean immigrants to the United States, and specifically to Harlem. But within 10 years, he's one of the leading grassroots leaders in the country, who has amassed a newspaper that's read all over the world. He also has Rastafari. I almost forgot. This brother, man, see, Garvey, man, he's touched so many people that you got to stop and really think about it. Rastafari, Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, a whole lot of different people. The music, the culture. What do the Rastafarians believe? Who do they see as their deity? Who do they see as the messenger, the prophet? The Honorable Marcus Garvey, family. Yes. Why do they believe that Haile Selassie, His Imperial Majesty of Ethiopia, had some type of divine status? Well, because Garvey said that Ethiopia was stretched forth his hands, that he went to the Bible and quoted a biblical verse, and he said that the leader of our people, the prophet, is going to come from Ethiopia. Right? So even the Rastafarian movement is touched directly by Marcus Garvey. There would be no Rastafari the way we understand it if there was no Marcus Garvey. There would be no Nation of Islam if there was no Marcus Garvey, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was a Garveyite. And that then means there would be no Malcolm X. I mean, you can just trace all of these different philosophies that come out of Garvey. And that's why in the Black Power movement, Black Arts movement, all these young students and activists are now getting introduced for the first time or reintroduced through their parents and their professors and older activists to Marcus Garvey, because they say, oh, you're saying we need to have paintings and music and poetry in our own? Oh, because Marcus Garvey said that decades and decades ago, right? And you need to check out his writing. So his writings and his ideas are timeless. And I really urge those of you, if you haven't, there's Marcus Garvey Life and Lessons. There's so many good books, but really, if you read that Philosophy and Opinions, man, that is the hub of his intellectual, his political theory, his views, his activism. He's really amazing. I mean, he's just really amazing when you think of all the different areas he touched. And by the way, as a person who started a middle school 26 years ago, co-founded one, as a person who co-founded a Black Political Education Center, a liberation school, there wouldn't be no Harlem Liberation School if it wasn't for Marcus Garvey. Because way before we had an African-centered school movement in the 60s and 70s and the Emoji Shoelays and all these different African-centered schools, shout out to the Barudis, shout out to Brother Marcus Klein, shout out to Baba Amin and all of our brothers, brilliant brothers and sisters that have these schools, man, reaching our babies and cultivating their minds and their character. But they likely would not have existed the way they are without Marcus Garvey, because even though he did not explicitly say, build a school like that, he did repeatedly in his writings talk about we need to have an education that reflects our interests and our images. We need to be talking about the issues that pertain to us. We need to be training our kids in careers and skills and knowledge that we need to have a nation. So he was talking that way back when. We need to, on this birthday of his, which would have been his 138th, we really need to, if you can steal a minute today and go do a little internet search. Get into some of his writings. Try to purchase a few of his books in the next week or two if you can afford it. And try to really read some of his core ideas, and you're going to see, wow, a lot of stuff we think is new is not new. It goes back, and a lot of it goes back to him. So with that, I just want to say, man, thank you all for listening. Take your time out with me. Have a blessed day. Peace and Black Power. Free the land. I want to end with what Brother Garvey would have said. He would have said, wake up, you mighty race. We can accomplish what we will. And then he would have said, Africa for the Africans, at home and abroad. Peace and Black Power, family. To put some spec on the name of the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. He worked hard for it and he deserves it. And the white man did his best to remove him from our history, from our memory banks, but he couldn't do it. Thank you, family. Peace and Black Power.